Chapter 6, Learning and Performance Management. Learning should be lifelong and always very positive. Learning is something that changes our behavior through experience, and it guides and directs our behavior. Two types of conditioning or learning: classical conditioning and operant conditioning. When you think of classical conditioning, think of Pavlov's dog. There were two unconditioned items, a stimulus and a response. In my example, meat and hunger and eating. Coupled with that and paired was a conditioned stimuli of a bell. So when the dog heard the bell, his unconditioned response was with hunger and wanting to eat. With operant conditioning, think of any child doing something they're not supposed to, especially if it causes pain, like a hot surface. Teaches them through a consequence or a reinforcement not to do it again. Reinforcement, punishment, and extinction. Reinforce, want that same desire. Punish and extinct, don't want that desire repeated. Reinforcement, we want to put positive consequences when somebody does something good or desired, and we want to give negative response when someone does not do something desired. In the opposite situations, we withhold feedback. Extinction, a good way to think of this is ignoring. Somebody just wants to get attention. Ignoring it may stop that behavior. Looking at it in a block, positive consequences, apply that consequence and reinforcement, and you want that behavior to repeat, just as in the opposite block, negative consequences with punishment, you should apply the negative consequences. Bandura's social learning theory. He talks about example and modeling. We all learn strong from watching and seeing what other people do, sometimes more than hearing. Self-efficacy, I can do it. How do we know we can do it? We've done it before. We've seen somebody else do it. Somebody told us we could do it. Learning and personality differences. Carl Jung identified some personality traits. Some of them being introverted and extroverted, and others intuition, sensing, thinking, and feeling. Introverted people tend to learn in quiet and study and alone. Extroverted want that interaction with people. Looking at the four others, thinking, intuition, sensors, and feelers. Thinkers and feelers in that process of your personality are making the decisions. The other two are information gathering. Goal setting at work. The process of establishing desired results that guide and direct behavior. This is an excellent thought. To have effective goals, they need to be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. In other words, SMART. When you're setting the goals to increase the motivation and performance, include the employees in developing those goals, supervisors committed, and you have useful feedback. Clarify the tasks. In doing the performance evaluation, applying a technique called management by objective tends to be more of a negotiation and conversation and usually has more than one point in time to have performance evaluation conversations. Performance management. It's that process of defining, measuring, praising, providing feedback, and improving performance. How we accomplish that is we define a performance we want in some behavioral terms. We measure, watch it, assess it, and then we have feedback on how that went and continue goal setting and planning. I'm sure all of you have either been a recipient of a performance appraisal or have been administering one. It's a time where the supervisor and the employee have time to look at performance, get feedback to the employee on their performance, figure out what they need more development need on, how to handle their future career. With goal level and task performance, what has been documented is that someone will have the best performance when they have a goal that is difficult, however not too difficult, rather than one that's completely easy and will go into boredom as soon as it's done. So that middle type of goal is the one that gets the best performance. When we think about performance evaluations and appraisals, we all know they're not exactly perfect. So there can be deficiencies where an evaluator doesn't notice something they've done. You can't see everything all the time. And then some reliability and validity problems. Excuse me. Performance feedback. Say something good. Important. Specific, observable. Not I thinks, I feel, not subjective statements. Focus on what can be changed, and both should prepare for this. 360-degree feedback. It's getting input from others than your supervisor, which can add some very valuable information. Developing people. Where it says here be vulnerable and open to challenge for the supervisor, they are still the one in control and need to remember that. Employee takes responsibility for their own development and growth. Reward. To who, how, and when. And this does shape the behavior of everyone in the organization. We have individual rewards, team rewards. There needs to be a connection that employees can identify with that shows performance leads to rewards. You have an employee with poor performance. Identify that cause or what the responsibility for that performance is. Can include determining the source of any personal problems and develop a corrective action process. What can the organization do? Make sure they're designing their work properly and that their organizational process is running, not hindering. And the employee can contribute a lot to that performance. Kelly's attribution theory. We all make and attribute certain behavior based on cues. The three informational cues are consensus, distinctiveness, and consistency. When we perceive people, we apply the attribution theory. We look at whether the behavior of an individual is under their control or whether it was caused on the outside externally. So if I look at this example, which is also in the book, I look at two different situations. I look at how those cues are, consensus, distinctiveness, and consistency, and determine whether it's an individual attribution or an external. Mentoring. That work relationship that encouraged development and career enhancements. If you have a strong mentor, positive situation, it's a positive thing. You initiate that effort. It's cultivated over time, eventually separation and redefinition.